Thanks for watching Straight Talk this week. We're going to examine those places that young people joyfully go to each new day for excitement, enlightenment and fun. You've guessed it, schools. In tonight's Straight Talking class are Mark Tate, Andy Bowman and Sarah Neal, who've left school, Nikki Davis, Joanne Green and Deborah Rose, who are still at school, and Michael Clark, who runs the school, all here tonight for Straight Talk. Some idiot once said that they were the best days of our life. Well, I don't know what school he went to, but it certainly wasn't mine. In fact, in the exam for dullness, most schools get straight A's. But fear not, help may be at hand, because we have with us here tonight a new breed of head teacher who's looking forward to the time when schools, as we know them, are scrapped. Now, Mike, what school are you the headmaster at?
West Denton High School in Newcastle.
Right. Now, what is it that you don't like about schools?
Well, I don't like the way most students can't wait to leave, and they rush off at the first opportunity. I don't like the way that they see schools as machines for producing failures. I don't like the way that many parents are frightened to come into school, or at least concerned about it. I don't like the way politicians are suspicious of what schools do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think schools do a lot of good things, but they need to be seen to be doing them, really.
Right, okay, right, we'll come back to those things in a moment. Mark, what did you not like about school?
Teachers.
Teachers?
Yep, they were rotten.
You thought they were rotten?
Absolutely rotten.
Right, okay, hold a minute. Sarah, what did you hate most about school?
I quite enjoyed school, actually.
Oh, shock.
I hated the atmosphere that you were you were channeled into one tunnel because you were a girl or because you were a boy. That was what I didn't like about it. There was no merger between the two.
What about you, Andy?
I agree largely with that. You're not credited with being able to think. You're there to memorise facts and not any relevance to them. You know, you ask the question why, or it's dismissed.
Right. Okay, well, let's start with teachers. What do you think makes a good teacher?
A good teacher was a teacher that can relate to students well enough to get on with them. I mean, you can have a laugh with a teacher, but at the same time learn while you're there. And on the other hand, you can have a teacher who's really strict and you just don't want to go in their class. That's when I was at school.
Enjoying it.
Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, some teachers can make the difference between you enjoying a subject and not enjoying a subject?
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
How?
Well, all the teachers which I get, they're not just teachers, they're like personal friends. And if I had a problem, either a personal one or something to do with a lesson, I could go and tell them. So like the atmosphere's relaxed and you're willing to learn because you get on with the person.
I found that like in the lower school, I don't know if anyone else did, the teachers are very distant from the pupils. They're at the front of the class to teach you nothing else. But when you reach the sixth form, you become much more on a level with them. And you can relate to them more, and you can maybe talk through your problems because they're there for you to turn to.
The classes are smaller as well.
Yeah.
I
so
disagree
you
with
get more
the sixth
attention.
form.
You disagree with that?
I don't think I could at all. Like I asked you, the sixth form I was at school, and I thought the division that existed in the lower schools still persisted in sixth form.
I think it's what you make it though, because in our sixth form there's lots of kids who are basically just kids, and they go to the lessons and they think, oh, this is a classroom, I sit down and there's a teacher and that person's going to teach me. Where myself and my friends, we've got a different attitude. So you looked upon as more grown up. So it's like what you make of it.
Since you've been older, or what about when you were younger though?
Well, no, because I've always really been different, and so has my friends. So like we're looked upon as different from everybody else, and we have been called names. I mean, nobody's had abuse like what I've had, but
What, like what?
Well,
about what? Why?
Basically because you dress differently, and they all dress the same, and we've got a name for them, sheep, you know, like they just follow each other. And you walk down the corridor and I'll be dressed the way I'm dressed now. I think this is normal, just jeans and soft shoes, and you get called weirdo or hippie or other names.
Do you think if you'd had uniform then at school, then that wouldn't have happened? That would have eliminated that problem?
I don't know, I think it's good to have a uniform in that sense, but you can't grow as a person, you can't wear your own clothes which reflect your personality.
Well, yes,
Depends what you make of it. Because, like, I mean, you might say that they might say that uniform is like a grey blazer and a grey skirt or something, and you can wear a massive big long skirt, or somebody might wear a mini skirt up to here. And
It all depends how strict your school is, though.
Mike, you introduced uniform into your school?
The school was technically a uniform school, but it wasn't really. And I wear it. This is school uniform.
So you're wearing your school
That's
uniform
right.
now?
I mean, yes. to make a point.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't ask students to do something like that that I wouldn't do myself.
What
Sixth
about if
form,
you, but if you were a headmistress, would you, you know, quite so readily wear the school uniform?
I don't know. I'm not female.
I mean, it's kind of an easy thing to say, I'm wearing
I can't
the school
say. No,
uniform.
I'm not sure. I think it probably is easier for blokes on the whole to adopt this kind of thing. But it's actually a subtle ploy because I don't like wearing a suit. But no, I think it is important. It does reduce the kind of differences you mentioned. And I don't think it necessarily makes a difference to growing as a person. Because as you said, what really counts is the relationship between the student and the teacher. Now, if you can get rid of some things, like people calling each other names because of what they're wearing, then you can get on with the real business.
I mean, you're going to get people called names anyway if they wear glasses or they're tall or something. You know, by enforcing a uniform, you're putting your ideas and your values on them. This is how you should dress.
Did you
Yes,
have
that's
uniform
right.
at school,
Yeah.
Andy? And were you glad or did you hate it?
I hear it.
I'm afraid I disagree with you because my parents have been in the Air Force and I've travelled around a lot. And in most schools I've been in, I've worn uniform. And my parents were very concerned about me wearing uniform to look smart. And I had me tied up to me top button and things like that, when other people would maybe have the tie hanging halfway down their chest and buttons wide open. And I get called things like SWAT and things just because I was wearing this. Plus I wasn't accepted maybe sometimes in different areas because I spoke differently and I had different attitudes that I picked up from other places. And I did find that difficult.
Nikki, what school do you go to?
West Denton High.
Who's your headmaster?
Mr. Clark.
Right. How did the school receive it when he introduced school uniform?
The sixth formers, it didn't affect us, so I've never had to wear uniform in West Denton. But
you must have heard the rumours going around
yeah,
school.
the
You know. What
law-
did they think of him?
the lower years really despised it at first, especially the fifth form, because they had come through the school without wearing uniform, and then entering the fifth year, suddenly they had to wear this uniform, and they were only there for a year.
Most did.
Yeah.
Not all. We won a few, we lost a few.
And quite a few people would try and get around it by wearing maybe a blue striped top and these dead trendy black trousers and think it uniform, but they looked what you call trendy. And it was quite funny because a lot of them wouldn't accept it at first, and it did take a long time for people.
What about other members of staff? Do other members of staff wear school uniform?
Some do, some don't. Very few.
Is
They
it,
can.
is it a choice or?
Oh yes, I mean again, it's one of those things where I was asked to solve a problem, which was to create a sense of identity for the school. My job is solving problems. That's what I'm paid for. This is one of the solutions I came up
But
with.
it's not a choice for it's not a choice for the students, though,
No.
is it?
In that sense, it's not. I give them a lot of other choices.
What happens if, for example, you get a student who comes in who's not wearing a uniform, a pair of jeans or a tracksuit top or something? What happens?
We talk to them.
Yeah.
Well, okay, now that brings us on to another point, because a lot of people would say that school is basically all about rules and regulations. Don't run in the corridor, don't shout out loud, make sure you put your hand up when you want to say something. Is that how you look back on school?
Oh God, yeah. Oh, yeah, we always have to walk on the right side of the stairs when we were at school. Always had to wear a uniform. If you didn't wear a uniform, if you didn't have a correct colour tie on, you got sent home at lunchtime.
You got
right?
sent home?
Oh yeah.
We don't have that.
Or if you were really persistent in not wearing a uniform, sometimes you get the cane. But I mean that was a couple of years ago. I don't know if I do it now.
That's horrendous.
Yeah, but
That's just
So,
dreadful.
but it was really strict. I mean,
yeah.
in that sense, you know.
What about everybody else? I mean, were your schools strict? Were your schools strict?
We had a uniform, but it wasn't at all very
about-
strict.
But what about other rules and regulations?
It was quite a laid-back school, actually. It had a good reputation in the area, and it was quite forward-thinking. They were introducing a lot of new things.
But do you think there's any value in some rules and regulations? I mean, you
Oh
know,
yeah, because I mean, if you leave school and you've got no sense of regulations, you know, if you don't do things the way people say, you know, to do them, you go to school and you're just going to be, I don't know, I'll put it in a different term, but you're going to be yob, you know. But you've got to learn your sense of values before you leave school. You've got to learn to respect people and respect the people around you.
But do you think that comes around? People learn to respect other people because that person's giving you the cane?
No, no.
Generally, I found that, I mean, I've generally always enjoyed school, which is maybe part of the reason why I stopped on. But coming to leave school, I find my choices very limited, and that's one thing I dislike about the education system, because you can either go on a YTS, go on the dole, try and find a job. You've got the sixth form or maybe college, and for thousands of students leaving school every year, that's 5 choices, which isn't very much.
Do you think school prepares you for leaving school? I mean, you know, the emphasis tends to be on taking exams and academic subjects. What sort of things do they do at school these days to help
I think
you
also
prepare
just
you?
because I do a TVI enterprise course.
Which is what?
Tell the jury.
People up and ask for money, and you have to use your own initiative to do different things. And there's form does if you want to use it properly. But I think it prepares you more for university and college rather than leaving going into the big wide world.
I think this is the kind of movement one wants to see in schools. Certainly the new GCSE exams do produce the kind of independent learning which you've been talking about right the way down the school. And certainly TVI, that's a Technical Vocational Education Initiative. They're all these wretched labels.
Yeah.
But basically what it means is that it tries to orient people more to a wider view of what life is like beyond school. And that does give an awful lot more opportunity. So more students will do work experience, that sort of thing.
I mean, you don't have a lesson in school now, like French or maths like that. You don't have a lesson where it says how to cope with unemployment. You know, that's one of the things I think kids should be prepared for, because when they're going to hit that outside world, it's going to hit them hard, hitting unemployment.
If you start teaching how to be unemployed,
Yeah,
they get into a mould where I'm going to be unemployed when I leave school. Why?
But if you've got to prepare them somehow, though, to go outside in that world, not necessarily all right with unemployment, but the world outside.
Don't you think they know about it anyway from the television and newspapers and?
But
Don't believe what you see on television.
But what about something like you know, economics? What do you learn in economics? You sort of learn about elasticity or whatever the devil it's called. You don't learn about bank accounts and you know how to get a mortgage. Do you?
Of course you do.
That's what you do in your school.
I didn't learn about that one. I didn't.
You didn't learn about that sort of thing.
When I was at school, I wanted to know what it would be like when I actually got a mortgage. How would I approach a bank manager or a building society? I still really don't know that now, but I'm more prepared because I live on my own at college to face that when it comes.
Well, I mean, this enterprise scheme that was mentioned, I mean, one of the things you do is you go to a bank and organise a loan to run the business you want to run. That's the kind of thing
But
you do
how
now.
common is that, Mike? I mean,
Oh, a lot
am
more
I
than you
being
might
just
think.
very old-fashioned?
No, I
I've
think
never.
in Newcastle, it's about most of the secondary schools now will do this. I mean, Newcastle secondary schools are doing pretty well, far better than people think.
And does everybody take that course then?
At present, it's been a pilot scheme. As from '88, it'll be something which is available to all students.
When you say available to all students,
No,
does that mean
they'll be doing it. No, it'll be there. It'll be actually in place.
so that doesn't mean that they've got to choose between either chemistry or doing that course?
No, there are
You
certain...
don't have to choose anyway because you can fit it in your own free time. So even if all of your timetable was booked up and you had absolutely no free lessons, you could probably still do it and do it at home, which we do anyway.
But there's still the exam system in schools, right? What do you think about exams?
Well, I had a maths O-level this morning, and I think and I think the 16 plus is a better exam because everyone has more or less a fair chance. But I do feel that going to a possible future employer, it is still rated against an O-level CSE system. And I got my results last year from being in the 5th form, and I got an O-level and a CSE mark, and maybe I got CSE grade 1, O-level grade C, and it's still graded on that, but it's a separate exam altogether, which I think can be confusing.
Exams are basically just regurgitating facts.
Well, that's true.
anymore.
But how much of it is? I mean, you know, it comes at this time of year. People can have hay fever. They could get terrible attack of nerves. It could be that they've got a bad memory. How much do you think exams actually do measure intelligence?
Well, it's just one of these things. I mean, if you look at it from, as I was saying, a psychological point of view, you could take an exam on a Monday and do rotten at it. You could do it on a Friday and you could do fantastic. You could be depending on what kind of mood you are and how you've learnt the facts, etc.
GCSE, a lot more work is done as project work
assessment,
over the two years before the actual examination. That, of course, is much more sensible.
But do you think that people? Do you think what Nikki's saying is true? Is that people still don't respect those exams quite as much as the traditional O levels?
Teachers in education are very bad at public relations, and we see that all the time. And they haven't explained adequately enough exactly what's going on and how well it's being done. I think, again, though, with GCSE as a single assessment, as a single sort of system of examining, it should be easier. But we still have a long way to go to explain what schools are like.
Right. So you're saying that O levels still are more respected than
They have been, but there won't be any, of course. As from next year, there aren't any. They're finished.
Right. How did you cope with exams?
Well, I don't know what you were saying before that you might get off Ds and that. Well, it depends on the person, the type of exam you take. Because I would put it under pressure anyway. I didn't expect to pass any of my exams. But when you get right down to it and see you've got 2 hours to do this, it just gets done.
But okay, I mean, even if you're continually assessed, does it necessarily mean that just because you can write an essay, that's an indication of how bright you are?
No. But that isn't necessarily the kind of assessment. There's a lot of practical work as well, for just those reasons. I mean, writing essays, I mean, you only write essays to write essays. A lot of other more important.
I mean, can an essay get you a job, you know? Whereas if you put an engine together in a car, it might be
Can you
able to
write
do
an essay about how you put a motor of an
But do you
engine
need them?
together?
But do you not think that perhaps the one good thing about exams is that they get competition going, and that maybe competition is good in school?
I think that can, in some ways, be a bad thing because within a class, it's very much rated among the students who is best, who is average, and who is well below average. And the below average think, well, I've got no hope in this exam. They just don't feel that they can put the effort in because they don't think they're going to pass anyway. The top students think, oh, I'm going to sail through this, no bother. And they just sit back and think, oh, well, you know, I don't have to put the effort in. This is no bother for me.
You should be trying to prove something to
That's
yourself
how I
rather
used to
than
feel
competing
when
with others.
Yeah, I used to feel like that at school when I was doing CSEs at the time and mates were doing O-levels. And I used to think, you know, I've got to get them over and done with these CSEs, you know. I'm not in O-levels, it's not going to get me a job. What the heck, you know, I just did it. And you look upon these people who are doing O-levels and think, oh, they're going to get jobs as soon as they get out of here, you know. I'm not. And, you know, you just leave school and you go into the job centre. There's no jobs there for people with CSEs. It's all O-levels and A-levels, you know.
I think
CSEs don't matter anymore. Now that they're abolished, I think, you know, it's the best thing that will happen.
I think schools very much dictate that, but surprisingly, my hairdresser, she went to West Denton and she come out with CSEs and all her friends stopped on and did A-levels. Now they failed their A-levels and they are in their 20s now and they're on the dole. Now she left school with CSEs, she's 19 and she owns a hairdressers. She's got tons of certificates and awards for going through a course and everything.
Do you think that's because if you do O-levels and A-levels, you're expected to go on to college and further education and things like that? Is that what happened to you?
That's what happened to me. I've gone through the education system. I've got a year left of my degree. I've never had a break. And I feel that I would have benefited better from taking a year out. I would have matured a lot. Not necessarily felt I would have gone back into education, but I had that decision to make.
When I left school, I went down to London, 16, straight down London, living on your own. I was on a yacht scheme. I learned a hell of a lot. I grew up in a matter of months, you know. Life was, you know, it hit me hard, really, pretty much so. And then I went back to college, and I did really well. And you look back to yourself and you say, well, I could have done that at school, you know. I could have worked really hard and I could have got them O-levels.
So do you think that maybe schools should be recommending that people do that a bit more?
Oh, yeah, definitely, definitely.
What about careers information? I mean, is it adequate? I mean, I remember when I went to my careers teacher at school and said, I want to get into television, and they said, go away and come back when you've got something sensible to tell us. So if you're watching, no. Anyway, but I mean, do you think that there is enough careers information at school? Do you get careers information?
Yes, we get 2 lots. We get the normal stuff, and then we get the TVI because we've got like little press badges. If you've got TVI, you know you're special. But also I want to go and do a drama degree, so my drama teacher informs me on anything that I want to know. So I get quite a lot. Or if I wanted...
It sounds like you two come from a dream school. Is it completely wonderful?
No, I mean, the thing that's good about school is because we're so isolated from everybody else and nobody likes we.
I don't think
we just do our own thing and we get on with it and we do what we want.
I think that one of the best things the school can do, in fact, is to make individual students feel very special without feeling too isolated. And the best thing that happens in a sixth form, and that's like why I think sixth forms are so important, is that you do try and ensure people, if you like, keep on growing, but at the same time keeping them in touch with things like careers, like new opportunities, so they don't wander off and get, you know, crash out in some dark place in London where you're doing sort of a yacht scheme at 16.
Andy, did you have much careers information given to you?
Well, we were useless.
Useless?
The worst was when I was at Polytechnic. That's what I wanted to do. And I said, well, one thing that I was interested in journalism. So, do they have papers in Newcastle? Yes.
But they didn't give you any constructive help?
I got more by word of mouth.
Within our school, our careers teacher, I had a careers interview and said, what do you want to do? And in the future I'd like to be an actress. Now, a lot of people laugh at that and I couldn't understand that. It seems a very dream-like career to wish for. It doesn't seem practical either. And she says, yes, but what do you want to do, you know? And she couldn't seem to, yeah, and she couldn't seem to accept the fact that I wanted to do something maybe different, and I didn't want a boring 9 till 5 job. And
so
And also
is that the careers teacher at your school now?
and I wasn't very well informed.
Right. I mean, how much emphasis would you put, I mean, how important is it to you to have a good careers teacher? I mean, at my school, actually, it was the biology teacher was the careers teacher as well.
We have, I think things, again, are changing sort of month by month, but we have a much more systematic program now, which starts when students are in the 3rd year, that's their first year in school, and goes through into the 4th and 5th year, involves interviews. There is, of course, a careers service in Newcastle, and each school has a careers advisor attached.
But that's all very well saying that, but I mean, do they actually give practical help, or are they kind of...
I think so. Their problem is, of course, that for a start, there are very few jobs. There's nothing more depressing than being a careers teacher saying there are no careers. Then there's this awful tension between, on the one hand, you want to make sure you do preserve people's dreams, and on the other hand, ensure that they also have either something else to fall back on or an alternative. I mean, it's 45% of kids, there's some research being done in Newcastle, who say they want to do one thing when in the 3rd year, have changed their mind by the time they get to the end of the 4th year. Now, a careers officer is trying to handle that, and they have to make judgments. I think more important than the information from the careers officer is the whole climate of the school, so you don't lose your dreams. You were in Bugsy Malone.
Do you think, I mean, you were talking about it a bit, you touched on it earlier on, do you think that teachers have enough time to cope with very bright children or very academically less bright children?
I think if they've got a bright kid in their class, I think they take more notice of them and the rest of them get left behind.
That's what happens generally.
I think, well, you know, it's very difficult. I mean, what can they do? If one kid's really bright and can progress, the other kid needs a lot of help. I mean, there's nothing you can do.
That's the sort of situation where my old school is where if you're quite slow at English, for example, they would take you out of that set class, your GC or your CSE, etc., and put you in a special class, and there was a special unit, as they called it, for people who were slow at English and stuff like this, you know, which it's got its good bad sides and it's got its bad sides.
What do you think the bad sides are?
Well, they feel alienated from the rest of the group, and thinking, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Special cases, aren't they?
I'm thinking, like, you know, what am I doing here?
Do you think we need teachers? Do you think we need schools?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
You need
definitely.
contact with other people.
Education.
Because schools provide a social outlook with atmosphere, with other people. You learn your location, and you can relate to other people. You can learn from other people as well, their ideas and what they're teaching.
So will you look back on school as a happy experience?
I think so, yes.
What about you, Andy?
Not really.
Not really. Do you think we need schools?
Well, obviously you need school, yeah.
Why, I mean, how will you remember school?
I suppose the worst part was the 6th form. That was a terrible mistake going into 6th form.
Why?
Because, well, you know, I expected to be different. The barriers to be broken down, but it was still sir and miss, and he was always right and I was always wrong.
I think it's different if you go to a 6th form
Yeah.
college instead of a...
definitely.
Oh yes, it's totally
Shouldn't
different. We have a situation like that as well, where the kids have left school at 16. They come to our college, they're allowed to smoke, you know, and do what the heck they like, call the lecturers by the first names. If they were in 6th form of that school, where they've just come from, it's yes sir, no miss, no smoking, getting this time.
Is that what your 6th form's like, Mike?
We wouldn't have smoking, but then I don't even, and like most staff, we don't even like smoking in the staff room, so it's not just the fact of the 6th form. I think that, yeah, there is a problem, of course, of moving on, but the really nice thing is that if you do in fact gain respect and greater contact with someone who you've known when you were little, and suddenly you're now grown up, that is very special. I think that's one of the good things about 6th form.
6th form have to wear uniform.
No, of course
Nope.
not.
We did.
I think one of the good things about school, I mean, apart from teaching you how to pass your exams and everything, is that, like, it gives you contact with loads of other people. I mean, I hated school. I hate all the kids in our school. I mean, okay, we've got it. Like, there's a lot of nice ones, but I mean, you walk down the corridor and you can expect to be spat at and things thrown at you, and oh, it's terrible.
So, Mike, your ideal school would be what?
Well, first of all, you wouldn't call it a school.
Oh.
It's
What
a
would you call it?
resource. It's a learning resource for the whole community.
I'm off to learning resource today.
Well, that's the trouble. It's the label's always a problem. But what I mean is, schools are for people to learn for no other reason. And it's not just for people between the ages of, whatever, 13 and 18. We have adults in our school. We have blind people in our school. We have 1,000 adults a week coming through, evenings, weekends. It's a place to learn. And it should be exciting.
So, is that what he's going to make us do? What do you need to get you through the day? Coffee, tea, tobacco, alcohol, painkillers or pot? All of us take some of them and some of us take all of them. Tonight, Straight Talk takes a straight look at the wicked world of drugs with regular Straight Talkers Wendy Howard, Joanne Green, Deborah Rose, Andy Bowman and Mark Tate. And from the Phoenix House Drug Rehabilitation Centre, Keith and Mark. Our special guest is Anti-Heroin Project Coordinator Ros Graham. Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. Now there'll be some people watching this programme stoned out of their tiny minds, completely out to lunch, whether it's through booze, pills or hard drugs. We're a society of drug takers. For most of us it's not a problem, but for some of us it is, or was. Now Mark, you're one of those people for whom it was a problem. How long ago did you give up drugs?
About 7 months ago I came to Phoenix House, which is a drug rehabilitation centre.
Right. What were you hooked on?
Most drugs I was, mainly opiates were my biggest problem, which is like heroin and like the chemical counterparts which chemists can make up.
Right. So, I mean, when did it all start? When did you first start taking drugs?
I first started taking drugs when I was about 12-year-old. It was like there were a big phase of glue sniffers at school. And like, a lot of people were doing it, and I felt as if I had to, you know, to make friends. It was something everybody, it was the in thing to do. Sniff glue, be good. And you got a lot of respect at that age for doing that kind of thing. Into your good, he takes drugs. And
then it led on from there?
It led on from there, yeah.
So after starting to sniff glue at 12, what happened after that?
Well, gradually it faded out, you know, people got bored of it. But like I and a few others, we were in a situation where we still wanted that excitement. It was something we enjoyed.
What is the excitement? I mean, what's the sensation that you get?
It's like, I think one of the best ways to describe it is like, it is like an orgasm all over. It's not like in just one particular place. It's like a tingling all over your body. Whereas, and it lasts a lot longer, obviously.
So after you presumably you went on sniffing glue, but then how did you get onto heroin?
Well, I gradually worked up the ladder. I can remember this particular day. I've always been tall for my age, and like a friend of mine who was selling like dope said to me, "Will you go and fetch this dope because police are following me and it's a bit dodgy for me and I owe them a bit of money, so will you go down and say that I've sent you and they'll see you're right?" And I thought to myself, well, if I can say that he sent me, I can do it for myself. Then I went down and got to know him, and then it just led on from there, escalated. Right.
So how did you actually decide to stop?
Well, I've come to the age of about 18. I was in a total mess. I couldn't like see a day through. I weren't like stoned enough. No matter how much I had, if I could still see properly, I weren't stoned enough. I wanted to get totally and utterly out of it and completely lose everything. And I was just killing myself. The amount of times I woke up in toilets unconscious, in pubs unconscious, you know, walking across roads and getting knocked over.
So what did you decide to do?
Well, I was in a lot of trouble, and Phoenix House is a Phoenix House in Sheffield, which is where I come from. And I went down to get assessed. They'd always known about me, you know, because they assess people at this hospital where you went to see, like, psychiatric nurses and doctors. And I went for 6 assessments, and they says, well, we've decided that it's no good for you going to Sheffield because it'd be too easy to set up. There's, you know where to get drugs from, you're liable to bring them back to the house. So they sent me off to South Shields, and I've been there ever since. Right,
so Phoenix House has obviously helped you a lot. Now, a lot of people have also kind of been supporting Phoenix House, and a little while ago, a lot of pop musicians got together to record a song for Phoenix House, and we're going to show you a clip of that video now. It's called It's a Living World. Terrific video, everybody. We were bopping away here. Now, Roz Graham, you were one of the key people behind that video and that song. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Well, basically, I met the producer who had some rough demos that he'd already put down. And through Patch Music, Cliff Richard's company, I got involved and they said to me, we need someone that would be willing to give up a year of their life to get this whole project together, because it involved hours and hours of free studio time, free tape, getting the artist there, touting it around, getting a record company interested.
So it's not just the one song and the one video, is
no,
it? There's
not
an
at
album
all.
as well,
There was a single, and it was followed up by this.
And what's on the album?
Well, there's everybody. There's Dire Straits, Wham, Fergal Sharkey, Howard Jones, Eurythmics, Saxon, New Model Army, Paul McCartney, Chris Rea, Elvis Costello, a whole host of stars. It's a fabulous album that's in the shops now.
Terrific. Well, we actually played a bit of it on our Christmas show, just as it was being released. How did it do? How well did it sell?
Well, it was very, very sad. I had a lot of arguments about it. We had very little airplay. Radio 1 had an anti-drugs week where they covered quite a few of the tracks. And then they said, right, we can't give it any more airplay. And unfortunately, when you release a single, unless you get a lot of coverage on it, it kills the album. So it didn't give the follow-up the album needed.
Well, let's hope everybody goes out and buys it now, because it's terrific. Now, I mean, you've obviously been involved in the music business for some time, have you?
As a coordinator, yes. I'm basically a music and film consultant.
So have you come into a lot of contact with drugs? I mean, everybody says the music business is rife with drug taking. Is that true?
I wouldn't say it's rife with drug taking, but yes, a lot of people do take drugs. Maybe not so much the hard drugs, heroin, but a lot of coke and marijuana. Not so much, I don't think, now as they used to. Right. But I mean, the whole thing is that all these people have stood up to try and help on this project. They've all given up a lot of time and money because they feel very supportive.
What do you think it is about the music business that makes people, that means that there's so much drugs involved in it?
I think it's the whole high energy thing that, you know, they're in studios sometimes for nights on end. They need that extra buzz. But I mean, you listen to someone like Cliff Richard, who is so into clean, healthy living and goes out and plays tennis and eats health food and everything else. I think so many people are getting into that mode of life now.
And with people like pop stars, it's probably quite important because they lead the way so much.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, so many people that in the 60s, I mean, the Stones, all these people that openly, you know, used to smoke marijuana and God knows what else.
But in the music business, I mean, do you see it happening when you're around studios and things like that? People do it quite openly, do they?
No, very little now. I mean, I do think studios are trying to stop it. They don't blatantly do it. I mean, okay, maybe they go off into the loo and have a quick line of cocaine. I don't know. I think it happens much less now than it used to.
What about everybody else? How many people here? I mean, have you taken any illegal drugs ever?
Well, just soft drugs.
What do you mean by soft drugs?
Cannabis.
Right. And how does that start? I mean,
well,
did you go looking for it? Or
no, just some of my friends did.
Do a lot of your friends?
Quite a few, yeah.
And then what happens? So you're at a party and...
Be a joint passed around.
What about you, Deborah?
Well, no, not really.
Do you know, I mean, any of your friends?
Well, yeah, I know quite a few people that have taken it and that and just smoked dope and that.
And you've never been tempted?
Well, I've never really been in that situation. I suppose if I was in a situation and like, if it was, I don't know, I might.
What about you, what about you, Mark?
Taking a couple of times, yeah.
I mean, is it common? I mean, is it, you know, people say young people of today, they're all taking loads of drugs. Do you find it's common?
I don't think it's rife within kids, you know. I think it's more in adults than anything else, not in kids, because I think kids really get into the glue more than anything else. I mean, they don't know who to go and see to get some cannabis or some heroin or something like this. Go down to the corner shop, yeah, get some glue.
Is that something you've come across, Wendy?
Yeah. Not personally, but I had a story once was pretty shocking to me. There was a 7-year-old boy asked one of my friends if she would go into the shop and buy him a punk outfit because of the glue in it, and it was a 7-year-old boy. It distressed me, that.
Find all ways of doing it. Now, Keith, you were also addicted to heroin?
That's right. Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That was up till 7 months ago. I used heroin for 7 years.
And how did you use it? I mean,
I injected heroin.
You injected it. When you were younger and you used to hear about people taking heroin and hear about sort of people injecting themselves, did you ever think that you would do it yourself?
No, not really. Even when I started doing it at first, all the stories you'd hear about, oh, you'll be a junkie, you know, no, it'll never happen to me, you know, I'll never get like that.
Even when you first started actually doing it?
Even when I first started doing it, yeah, it's something you think you can control. You're not going to end up in prison through it or anything like that. It's not going to happen to you. It's as simple as that.
So where do you get hold of it?
Just you get into a scene, and I mean, you don't usually go straight to heroin. I got into it through soft drugs.
Well, that's funny, because I mean, a lot of people say, you know, soft drugs lead on to harder drugs, and that's something not everybody agrees on. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't agree on the actual soft drug leads to a harder drug. It's more the people who you hang about with, or the people you want to be associated with. You know, that's how I started taking it. It led up gradually from drinking alcohol when I was young to smoking cannabis because I wanted to be with that set. And then that set of smoking cannabis, you know, I moved on to heroin. I thought, well, that looked quite good, you know, I'll try that. And I got to know the scene of people, and it's quite a close scene, really. You know the people who you are. It's not as if people have got big signs outside the houses where you can go and buy it.
How much does it cost?
Roughly, it's around £80 a gram.
A gram, and I mean, how much do you take at a time?
Just depends how big a habit you've got, really. I mean, there are people who inject grams at a time. Just depends how long you've been taking it, how much you have to take. It's one of them drugs. You can go from using £10 worth a day to using £100 worth a day in 4 weeks, 8 weeks.
And how much were you using?
Before I came off, I was using about £80 worth a day.
So where do you get that sort of money from?
Well, me personally, I used to go out robbing and things like that. I mean, a heroin addict will find money from anywhere. I mean, nothing really matters as long as you get your daily fix. You don't really care about anything else.
So what's the feeling you have when you're coming down and you think, I've got to get some more, I've got to get some more? What's the physical feeling?
It's an all-consuming craving. You know, nothing else matters. You know, you've as I say, depending on how bad you're addicted to the stuff. I mean, a drug addict who's taking a gram a day will be throwing up and be shaking and all that lot, but it's still the same. The mental craving for it is still the same. You know, you'll go to quite long lengths to get money for heroin.
And when you look back on it now, I mean, what do you think?
Crazy times. It was
just horrible.
Yeah, it was a part of my life that I'm really glad I left behind, and I mean, I left the place where I used to use heroin. I live up here now, and I would never want to go back there. Basically, because I know the scene, I know everybody there, and it's a part of my life I just really need to leave behind me. I don't need that anymore.
Like there's more things to life than just heroin. There's
more
positive things, many more positive things.
It was like when I was on the streets, a lot of junkies get it rammed down them that once a junkie, always a junkie. There's no escape from it. And that's it, and you tend to believe it. And it actually took me to go to Phoenix House in a regime like that to actually come to terms with well, there is a lot more to life than actually sticking a needle in your arm every day of the week.
Mark, what sort of other drugs did you take on the way to it? You sniffed glue. Did you take cocaine?
I have took cocaine, amphetamines, barbiturates, hallucinogenics.
So you basically, once you start, you just take anything that comes your way?
Yeah, well, at first, before I got into it, I mean, like, people find a preference, you know, a drug that they want to take for a long time. And, like, on the way to finding my preference, it were always, like, experimenting. I'd take, like, acid for, like, 3 or 4 weeks, then I'd be speeding for 3 or 4 weeks, then I'd be hitting bobs for 3 or 4 weeks, doing a bit of coke, and like that. And usually when you find a drug that gives you the most satisfying experience, you'll stick with that drug.
Well, that all seems kind of really shocking to us, maybe, but have you ever, I mean, if I said to you, have you ever taken drugs, what would you say? Have you ever had a drink of alcohol?
You'd call us out, because I drink coffee all the time, and like Coca-Cola, and that has caffeine in, hasn't it, and it speeds you up and that sort of drug, yes.
Do you think that maybe alcohol is just as dangerous and maybe should be made illegal?
No, I don't think it should be made illegal.
Why not?
Well, it's a social drink. I mean, drinking's social. everybody does it.
And how are you going to do it as well? You got America and the prohibition. They couldn't ban alcohol.
But do you think that it's just as harmful?
Well, yes, and so things like cannabis, it's more harmful because cannabis isn't addictive as alcohol is, and also cannabis makes you feel passive, whereas alcohol doesn't.
Yeah,
Intensifies the mood you're in.
Yeah, you can change your mood with alcohol. You can be totally passive person until you have a couple of beers or a couple of whiskies or something, and then you become a Hulk or something like that.
Not for everybody.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
yeah.
Some people it relaxes them.
Yeah, some people it does.
I mean, you go out somewhere and like you just go out to meet a circle of friends or something, and you need a drink. You need something to do with your hands.
Do you ever feel you need a drink?
Well, well, I mean, I might say, oh, I fancy a drink or something, you know, but
Like if you were under stress or something like that, would you say, oh, I need a stiff drink? Like that, I think that's just giving in.
I would probably say, oh, I could have a cup of tea.
I've done that before, like try to throw away, you know, put my problems behind us by, like, it wasn't really bad, but I was like drinking. Instead of facing me problems, you just can't do that.
What about you, John?
I think drinks so available. I mean, anybody at any age can get a hold of drink, it's either in the house because your parents have got it, or maybe if you don't look old enough to go into an off licence or a bar, you've got friends who can get it. And I think that's the worrying problem because you can easily get it.
How old were you when you first got drunk? Have you ever been drunk, I should ask first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been really, really drunk where I've not known what I was doing. But I think the first time I was a bit gone and I woke up the next day feeling a bit ill was when I was about 13. But
13?
Yeah, I've drank sherry and other things since about 4.
Well, that's the thing though, isn't it? I mean, you know, you start at home and it's kind of acceptable to drink. Do you think that's right? Or do you think it's something that should not happen? Parents shouldn't encourage children to drink? I mean, what about you guys? I mean, to you, is alcohol as bad as drugs?
Sometimes worse, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if you made it illegal, you'd have the same problems that you had with other illegal drugs. Like, because people would be going to places to get alcohol. Oh, there's no alcohol today, here, try some of this. You know, and then people would take that and it'd lead on because you're going with the intention of getting a drink. And you'll feel a bit down because, oh, well, I fancied a drink. Here, try this. Oh, try this then. Yeah, and it starts off and escalates.
It's just an escape from reality. I mean, a lot of drug users will actually use alcohol if there's no drugs available, just to simply get them smashed at the lid on the floor and they don't know what's going on around them. As it's quite available everywhere you go, and as a child, you know, you get like when you're 13, 14, it comes to Christmas Day, you know, oh, have a sherry, you know, it's Christmas, why not?
How part you do it to try and make yourself look clever as well and say in front of your friends and that?
That's right, yeah.
Well, how much of it is peer group pressure? I mean, how much of it is people sort of saying, oh, go on, have a drink, you know?
Individual and like how much control over your senses and your own power, you know, willpower. Like the group I was in with, they were always trying to get me to smoke a cigarette. You know, I never would do that, and as much as I would like to have had those friends, I never felt part of that group. But I never succumbed to that. I think it's up to the individual.
Yeah, but Britain has got a beer drinking culture. It's like if you want to meet someone, you go to the pub, whereas in other countries, often you invite them around your house.
Yes, but there's no reason why you have to drink alcohol.
Well,
or alcoholic wine.
What happens if you went to the pub and your friends all said, right, we'll have 4 pints of lager, and you said, and I'll have a Perrier? What would your friends think?
Well, Perrier water, they might scoff, but if I had an orange juice, I'd be fine.
Please go.
Oh, we don't drink Perrier.
I think people, you go in a pub and you drink solely because, well, everyone else is drinking, having a good time, you want to be part of that scene. You know what I mean? That is the norm in that place, and you think them people are quite exciting to be with, so you'll be one of them and drink. And it's the same with cannabis. You know, there'll be people smoking dope and you'll...
If you were in sort of, for example, you went round somebody's house, and instead of offering you a pint of lager, here mate, it's a pint of lager, oh, here's a joint, you know, that's doesn't happen in everybody's house, but it does with alcohol. It's a more socially acceptable thing, but still, you can get smashed out your brain with alcohol, but with cannabis, it's a lot less, you know,
it makes you feel happy as well. It helps you to get on better with your friends, sort of thing. Like alcohol loosens your tongue. I mean, you can...
Is this cannabis or alcohol? Because I've been in a place where people's been smoking pot, and I haven't been smoking it myself, but it's just made me feel really sick. It's like with cigarettes, but worse. So if they ever legalise pot...
Yeah, cannabis makes me sick. I don't take it, honest.
Yeah. What about you, Ros? I mean, do you drink?
Yes, I do.
Do you drink a lot? Do you think
I
you
like
feel you
wine
drink
and champagne. I love champagne.
Nice. But I mean, you know, in the music business, would it be naff to say you didn't want to drink?
No, not at all. No, not at all. I mean, you know, everybody does what they want. If you want a Perrier, it's quite acceptable to have a Perrier. But I mean, you know, talking about alcohol, I often get home and I think, God, I must have a drink. Because that, to me, is my form of relaxation.
And what about all the other drugs that there are? Like we were saying, like there's coffee and cigarettes and things like that. I mean, why do you think they should be legal? Why do you think they are legal? I mean, is it just to kind of get money to the government? And
I think you've got to draw a line somewhere.
Socially
I mean, if you
acceptable.
ban everything, I mean, like, it's going to be a pretty boring life.
but why should you ban cannabis, which we're acknowledging isn't dangerous
Well,
necessarily?
I don't think it should be banned anyway. That's my personal view.
The problem with cannabis is you can't detect it if you're using machinery. So therefore you'd be in charge of it, not actually in control of yourself. Like that's the problem with cannabis out here.
Yeah, if you're driving, you're intoxicated, as I say. They can't detect it on the breathalyzer. You know, if you pulled it by the police and, you know, take a breathalyzer test, there's nothing showing there. In Amsterdam, it's legal. You
But I
know.
mean, people are far more dangerous on alcohol than they are
Yeah,
if they're stoned
yeah.
by smoking a joint.
Yeah.
Do you ever, I mean, listening to Mark and Keith talking, could you, for instance, Mark, ever imagine yourself being in that situation?
From my point of view, I'd be really scared just looking at what they've gone through. It scares me. Just imagine it, you know, myself taking drugs, you know, like heroin, etc. I couldn't place myself doing it. I'd rather die before doing that. Saying that, I have taken cannabis, but I class cannabis as a low-class drug, and it's not heroin. And I think to myself, well, I can't get addicted to heroin. I'm not going to do it.
Did you ever have those feelings?
Not really, but I mean, I was quite a lot younger then, and I mean, a 14-year-old kid's not really got any fear about anything, not to that extent that someone in the 20s would have that knowledge about drugs and alcohol and all that. A 14-year-old kid is quite naive when it comes to them things. And
Mark, how difficult was it to give up?
It's
And where did you go?
It's finding your commitment. I mean, at first when I came to Phoenix House, I didn't want to give up drugs, you know. I thought, I'll do this and I'll get out and I'll start taking drugs again. But it's self-realisation. You think, you start feeling things that you haven't felt before because you've been blocking them all out with drugs. And you think to yourself, it ain't this bad, it's quite nice. I don't have to run about stealing, I don't have to run about hitting people over the head, borrowing money and being in debt all the time. And I can live just as happily.
And what did you go through when you were giving it up? You know, what physical things?
Physically, it weren't as bad. I mean, I had a detox in hospital.
What does that mean?
Where I prescribed certain amounts and took down very gradually. And like, it was methadone, which like you don't start withdrawing from till after 2 days. And then it was, I couldn't sleep, you know, cramps, feeling sick, aches and pains, not knowing where my head is, confusion.
Having said all that, it's a pretty silly thing to do, but is it like worth it? Like going through all that cramp and all that?
Yeah, well, to be honest, drugs for me has been an experience from the past, which if I could go back, I think I'd have still gone through the same path in life, just for the experience. Now I know where I stand. But after saying that, I look at people, I mean, I saw someone the other day who were out of their head on heroin, and I thought, Jesus Christ, did I look that stupid? You know, like scratching the face and I thought...
I've got a photograph of myself back at home of what I was like before then.
Tomorrow at 8, join Des on the Best of Guests. Some of the great moments from the last series. at 9, The Equalizer.
The man who attacked her 8 years ago, apparently, wants to finish the job.
The Equalizer at 9, and Des and the Best of Guests at 8, action and entertainment tomorrow on ITV.
Channel 4 now looks at the work of 4 artists who are breaking new ground. On Tyne Tees, the drama series Connie continues after the break.
Where do you keep the Nescafe jar?
Car's in the garage.
Nescafe!
Yes, please. Top right-hand cupboard.
Large or small?
Yes. Best taste of all.
He's got the message. Only Nescafe has that special blend and roast for that richer, smoother taste.
How's the coffee coming?
It's here! And there's no need to shout.
Oh, I don't know. Why keep quiet about Nescafe?
Nescafe. Coffee at its best.
Right now, your mouth could look something like this. A hard, ugly wall called tartar is building up around your teeth. And only your dentist can pull it down. But this wall is persistent. It won't stay down for very long, which is why Colgate developed a special toothpaste for adults, Colgate Tartar Control. This fluoride toothpaste not only tastes good, but will reduce tartar buildup on adult teeth, so they feel smoother and look cleaner. Colgate Tartar Control fights the buildup of tartar.
The thing about Angel Delight is that it tastes deliciously creamy. It's also very, very light. Bird's Angel Delight. Don't let go of your glass.
No doubt a time will come when all cars have high-security locks. This company fits them to most of its cars today. Sometime in the future, all cars will have cleaner exhausts. These people already make a range of clean, lean-burn engines. In a few years, all cars could have anti-lock brakes. You can order them already in a lot of this company's cars. And looking ahead, the electrically heated windscreen would be a good idea. Who do you think has thought of that, too? The people who make everything from supercars like this to the world's most popular hatchbacks, Ford. They make cars with a future.
Hello? No, this is 4724. That's quite all right.
Just for the feel of it, the fun of it, just for the splash of it, Diet Coca-Cola. Just for the one of it, 1 calorie. The feeling I get from it, Diet Coca-Cola. Just for the shape of it, Diet Coke. Just for the fun, woo! Just for the thrill, yeah. Diet Coca-Cola. Just for the taste of it, from Coca-Cola. Just for the look of it, Diet Coca-Cola.
paint job this time.